Karma's Puppets by Gansen John Welch. We may loudly protest that we are free from evil and negative karma's tyranny, but necessity forces us, against our wishes and our will, to steal, lie, and kill, and through our veins courses the infections of attachment, craving, grasping, and clinging. The ego is a relative, not an ultimate reality. The ego is a puppet, not the master, nor the main cause of our disaster, which in truth is karma, and our past negative thoughts, words, and deeds, impervious to any human opinions, dogmas, and creeds. These are the teachings on karma by the sages and saints of Dharma. The powers that be in samsara keep us poor and powerless. Nothing less is their goal. They do not want us to be healthy and whole, in mind, body, or soul. We run around like headless chickens bereft of reason, insanity seemingly always in season. We are herded like sheep, whose ignorance is profound and deep. Our folly, greed, and blind passions, always in fashion, continually lead us astray, and we will never find the right way without the light of Amida and his helping hand, that will bring us safely and surely into his pure land. Out of deep, deluded darkness into wisdom and compassion's light that shines, thanks to Amida, eternally bright, and heals forever our suffering in samsara. Thus taught the masters of Amida Dharma. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you, Amida Buddha. Homage to Amida Buddha. I take refuge in Amida Buddha. The above verses were inspired by the following passages from Reverend Josho Adrian Cirlea's excellent and important book, The Path of Acceptance, Commentary on Tannisho. Quote, the master once asked, Yuienbo, do you accept all that I say? Yes, I do, I answered. Then will you not deviate from whatever I tell you? He repeated. I humbly affirmed this. Thereupon he said, now I want you to kill 1,000 people. If you do, you will definitely attain birth. I responded, though you instruct me thus, I'm afraid it is not in my power to kill even one person. Then why did you say that you would follow whatever I told you? He continued, by this you should realize that if we could always act as we wished, then when I told you to kill 1,000 people in order to attain birth, you should have immediately done so. But since you lack the karmic cause inducing you to kill even a single person, you do not kill. It is not that you do not kill because your heart is good. In the same way, a person may not wish to harm anyone and yet end up killing 100 or 1,000 people. Someone who says, I can become a Buddha in this lifetime because my true nature is Buddhahood itself, is someone who fails to understand the influence of good and evil karma of past lives, and that every evil act done, even as slight as a particle on the tip of a strand of rabbit's fur or sheep's wool, has its cause in past karma, as Shinran said in the 13th chapter of Tannisho. Unfortunately, instead of realizing the profound maternal and compassionate aspect of Buddhism, too many Buddhist followers nowadays dwell in thoughts of personal spiritual evolution, staring at the sun of enlightenment portrayed in the books, while they cannot see their feet and their whole body is drowned in the dung of delusion and evil karma. I wonder what chance of reaching the sun has a person who has lived in darkness for so many kalpas, just by talking about the sun. In the Western countries, self-power Buddhism has so much success because people like to talk a lot about enlightenment and final liberation, about ultimate nature of things or emptiness, because like monkeys they like to superficially copy the masters of the past and stare into the ideal without realizing their true capacities and the desperate situation they really live in. They are unaware of the compassion of the Buddhas and how far this compassion can go in order to bring them to Buddhahood. Instead, they lose themselves in provisional teachings such as Buddhas are only teachers and guides, or you have to be your own light, ignoring the true capacities of this age and the people living in it. Or, as I said, being unaware of the fact that Buddhas are not immovable in their wisdom and freedom, but are always active and present like a loving mother is always present at the bedside of her sick child. They're unaware of how much they need the helping hand extended to them by the Buddha called Amida, who especially vowed that he will help such people as us. We are in delusion, knowing nothing at all of the depth of our karmic evil, or the vastness of Amida's benevolence, says Yuienbo in the postscript of Tannisho. Who is ready in this world filled with how great we are kind of visions to see himself or herself in the words of Master Shandao, quoted by Yuienbo? Know yourself to be a foolish being of karmic evil, caught in birth and death, ever sinking and ever wandering in transmigration from innumerable kalpas in the past, with never a condition that would lead to emancipation. This is exactly the starting point in Jodo Shinshu, when you realize your failure in reaching spiritual emancipation. If in other Buddhist methods you start with acknowledging that every being has Buddha nature and is a potential Buddha, which is true, in Jodo Shinshu you start with a realization that for you it is actually impossible to become a Buddha by yourself. That awareness is strong and definitive, knowing deeply that there is no condition ever for you that will lead you to emancipation. Once you have this strong and profound conviction about yourself, just like an alcoholic recognizes his present situation and accepts help, you no longer need to dwell in thoughts of self-power and personal evolution, but you become ready to receive the hand of Amida Buddha that has been extended to you. Superficial talk about good or evil can be left to those who wish to busy themselves with them, but for you, the helpful hand of Amida is all that matters. I often have the feeling of living in a world I do not really understand, which if I am to describe it in only one word, I would choose chaos. My mind is chaotic, and so are the minds of others. For example, I could not understand, no matter how much I tried, why some dear persons have left me, until I finally realized that there is nothing to understand. There can be an understanding of why some people do this or that, if they have a clear and stable mind. But what can one understand from a chaotic mind led by unknown and unstoppable karmic impulses? In chaos, you cannot see a clear path with a beginning and an end, with some reasons why some actions were done and others were not done. In fact, the majority of people act without knowing why, led by strong impulses like madmen, and you are also crazy if you imagine you can somehow find an explanation of their deeds. Of course, people give a lot of explanations for their actions, especially when they hurt one another. But my advice that, for example, I often give to those who pass through the suffering of a divorce is to not care about these explanations, just as you would not take seriously the explanations coming from mentally disturbed persons. People instinctively hurt one another because they are mentally ill, and the power of their evil karmic tendencies is so overwhelming that there is no chance to stop them. It is like living in the same house with persons who have been mentally sick from birth. You are crazy if you imagine that you can find some long-lasting peace or warmth or reason in this place. To me, the words of Shinran, in this fleeting world, this burning house, all matters without exception are empty and false, totally without truth and sincerity, illustrate best what I've wrote above, which are my own personal experiences and the thoughts about the world I live in. I often repeat to myself these words of Shinran in times of great sorrow, when the chaos, misery, and stupidity of this world hits me hard, so that I renew my awareness of the true nature of the place I'm forced to live in due to my past karma. I sometimes encourage myself with the thought that for a person living in the Amazon jungle, it is normal and natural to be bitten by mosquitoes, and it is stupid to wish for things to be otherwise. In the same way, this being the nature of this world, it is normal that I suffer. Living in the middle of so much suffering with various adverse circumstances coming to us every day, driven as we are by unconscious karmic impulses, how can we truly know what is good or bad? How can we truly see with calm eyes how things really are? If one is in the middle of a narrow street with very high buildings on his left and right, how can he have a general survey of the entire city? He in fact sees only the street he walks on and where he spends his entire life, but without flying above the city with an airplane, he will never have a complete vision of the city. It is the same with the vision of ordinary unenlightened people and the vision of the Buddhas. The first is limited by ignorance, blind passions, and karmic tendencies, while the latter is free and unrestricted by anything. This is, I think, the meaning of Shinran's words, I know nothing at all of good or evil, for if I could know thoroughly as Amida Tathagata knows that an act was good, then I would know good. If I could know thoroughly, as the Tathagata knows, that an act was evil, then I would know evil. In fact, for a foolish being full of blind passions, in this fleeting world, this burning house, all matters, without exception, are empty and false, totally without truth and sincerity. Nothing can be truly understood by an unenlightened mind, living a life full of suffering, resembling fire, in an impermanent world where he cannot rely on anything stable, be it physical or mental. Only one thing is true and trustworthy here, in this unending chaos and nightmare, the helpful hand of Amida extended to us in the form of the Nembutsu of faith, as Shinran assures us at the end of this true description of life and the world. The Nembutsu alone is true and real. This quote from Shinran helps me to pass through this life with a clear awareness of its true nature and the path I need to follow. I do hope it will have the same effect on you, dear friend. Namo Amida Butsu.